Hey guys, so it's just been so freaking chaotic and crazy. I got 3 feller bunchers that are cutting over there. I think they got one as kind of a backup machine. There's 2 Timcos and a Tiger Cat, and I was working on the Tiger Cat, and the damn thing, it's just weird problems I've been having lately. It's just everything's been really weird here lately. Like that feller buncher, it had a QSL9 with a caps pump in it, and the injection control valve was bad in it, causing it to run bad and smoke and low power. So I changed the suppressor diode on it and the injection control valve, and then they ran it about half the day the next day and said, well, it's running like a raped ape, but it's got a fuel leak. And I thought, you know, when I first got that thing together, I had a fuel leak on it, and I could not tell where in the hell it was coming from when I first got it all back together. And I had taken a bunch of stuff loose trying to find it, put it all back together, and I ran it again, and it didn't leak. And I thought, well, maybe I had something loose somewhere. It was the only thing I could think of. Well, what's really odd about the whole situation is, when I went over there the second time to figure out what was leaking, it was on a fitting on the back of the pump that I didn't even take loose. And I told the operator, I didn't even take the son of a bitch off. You know, and I said, and here's what's really even more strange. It's actually the fitting that goes up inside the injection pump. And there's a sealing washer, like a crushed sealing washer, that seals that up, and it was not one there. So we went back down the hill, and luckily I hoard all that kind of stuff, and I found one in my truck. Went back up there and put it back in. There's the 7930. It's got some kind of engine oil leak on the turbo. So went back up there. I gotta let these dogs out. You know what? Just stay in. I don't know. I'll let you out, I guess. I'll let you out. Hang on a second. Camera there. Come on. Oh. Oh. Anyway, so I go back up there and I tear it all apart and find that that's what's leaking. We went down, got a copper washer, and got it all sealed up to where it wasn't leaking again. Got him going again, but it's just weird. I didn't even take that fitting off. Further, it's like, did somebody else have it? You can tell somebody's putting a new accumulator head on the pump, you know? So somebody's had it apart at one time or another, but then I've got another weird issue going on, and I'll have to expand on this freaking Paccar fucking shit. I'm a glutton for punishment, you know? I really am. But Kevin's such a good guy that I'm trying to do everything I can for him. Let's look at this real quick and see what's going on here. Thought oh. That must be the oil leak he's referring to? Is this what he's talking about? Or is the turbo? Oh, looks like the turbo pressure line needs to be changed out. Okay, let's pull that off. Yeah, the pressure line's leaking around the crimp on it. Needs a new hose made, so let's get that pulled off of there. But anyway, so Kevin's truck has just been absolutely haunting me. So that's the one I put the ECM in a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. And here's the deal. It's got these codes for 2 sensors in it, saying they're shortened to ground. And I found out that there's actually 4 sensors that share that 5-volt driver in the ECM. So it's throwing a code for a P1645, a 2541. I can't remember the other number. But I mean, we have went through the ringer with this thing, guys, testing things. So it lost an ECM, and this was not the problem the other... Shit. This is not the problem the other ECM is having. The other ECM had solder or something broke loose in the board, and it would start and run when it was cold, but when the engine warmed up, it was like you just shut the key off. It was done. You couldn't even communicate with your laptop with it. So this truck, let's put it this way, it's been modified, and so we had to have a person modify the ECM to put it back in there because it's been modified. Well, I took it down there and had them do that, got back, and it's throwing 5-volt reference short to low for the turbine upstream pressure sensor and the fuel pressure sensor. Well, it's saying that the 5-volt is shorted to low on them. And then the P1645 is an actual 5-volt power supply loss code. Okay, that one doesn't look like it's very much fun to get on. No, not at all. Not one bit. Wow. That's like really, really stupid, you know what? Why would you do that? Why would you make something like that? It's gonna get a chisel and a hammer. That's what that's gonna get. I'll have to tell you a little. Let me get this line off and then we'll go to the next job. And I'll tell you more about this. Well guys, we got a 6715 John Deere here, and it had two problems. One thing, the stepper motor on the hitch here, I'll show you what that does. All that does, you got a can high and a can low and a power and ground going to the stepper motor. And that stepper motor, it's keyed here. See this little bearing here? It's keyed on this shaft and it'll turn. It's eccentric, see? It's offset. And all that does, when you want to raise or lower your hitch, see these valves in here? One's going to be a raised valve, one's going to be a lower valve. Well, that stepper motor had seized, and there were no codes for it. But anyway, I could pull it out of there, and I couldn't even turn it with a pair of channel locks. So anyway, and the other problem with this thing is this injection pump took a shit. There's some little, I don't know how to explain it back here on these, for this, they call it, I think they call it the throttling valve or something back here on the back. I've had this taken apart before, and these little needles, these little things get stuck back here and get hanging up. So we just got another pump for it. And then I just found out from Wayne that the pump showed up, and these guys picked up the pump, and then I'm like, well, where's the stepper motor at? Well, Portland's inventory said they had one of these there. Well, obviously their inventory's wrong, because now he said, no, I just found out that it's coming out of Lathrop. So it's supposed to be on UPS today. So let's get the injection pump out, and then I'll send these guys after the stepper motor once it shows up. On these tractors here, pull this out. If I can get it out. Let me get a bar, because it's not wanting to come out of there. You know what? Let's go Leatherman here, maybe. See if I can get it out of that, maybe. Anyway, okay, so let's talk about this. That ain't working for shit. So that son of a bitch, gal, she did the programming down there. Now keep in mind, there were none of these codes in there before this ECM went out. None of these codes existed. So he was complaining for lack of power after we stuck the ECM in. And I get in there and I see this fuel pressure sensor, and then there's a upstream turbine pressure sensor. And I look and see what the functions of the, I know what the, obviously the obviously what the fuel pressure sensor does, but I wanted to know what the upstream turbine pressure sensor actually controlled. Pull that out, turn the engine. I don't know if well, see if I can find my turning tool. And then what we got to do is pull, I'm trying to remember which one. I think you pulled this one out. If I remember correctly, you'll see it in the directions here. Yep, it's that one right there. Pull that plug out. I don't have a pin. I think I got an Allen wrench I stick in there. But we'll pin the flywheel first. Let's see if I can find my turning tool. Anyway, on that Paccar piece of shit, God, I don't know where my fucking turning tool is. I haven't used that John Deere one in a long time. There's the cat one. Usually those are all in the same spot, but I'm not seeing them now. There it is right there. I stuck them in there. Scatterbrain guys, trying to go a million different directions, thinking of a million different things. But anyway, so what it's doing is throwing these 5-volt reference short to ground codes. And what's really odd about the whole situation is that see if I can find a bolt to stick in that flywheel. Alright guys, so I'll explain a little bit on this Paccar problem. These Paccars, man, I'm telling you, I know I'm a glutton for punishment, but I think pretty soon I'd start learning these things. But this is a new problem. Their diagnostics and their troubleshooting trees on their stuff, they have like 2 steps to them, and then they tell you to call Paccar engine support or some bullshit. But anyway, this thing is goofy. After it was programmed, after we put the ECM, and the original ECM had a problem of what it did is I think he was under the chipper, and the truck just died, and they had to drag it out from under the chipper. And then I went up there. They said they couldn't get it restarted. Well, I couldn't get up there till the next morning. Well, I got up there, and it was still pretty cool up there. They were up there on Spring Creek Hill, which is a little bit higher, and I don't know, it was probably in the 40s that morning when I got there, and the truck started right up. And then I let it run for about 20 minutes there, and then it just died, and just like you shut the key off. And I couldn't communicate with it either, so I checked powers and grounds to the ECM. I had powers and grounds, I had the wake up call to it, and I had the case ground on pin 7. I had everything necessary for the ECM to work properly. Well, we had an ECM programmed and went back up there, and I didn't even, to be honest with you, I was in a hurry. I didn't even really check the codes in it. I just got the truck started. The check engine light wasn't on. I thought, okay, well, the check engine light's not on. There's no sense in hooking the laptop to it. And it ran, and I said, come get it. And I took off, and I head back down to the Klamath Basin. And he was complaining of intermittent kind of low power problems as soon as we did that. And I thought, huh. Well, anyway, I noticed when I was working on the truck there that the exhaust manifold gaskets were blown out because I had bumped the idle up with the cruise. I could hear it squealing. And I went around there, and there's like 3 manifold ports on the head there that you could see the carbon trails on it. And I called Kevin and said, hey, the manifold's leaking. And it had some coolant leaks on the side of that passenger side of the engine too. You know, those Paccars, every coolant fitting's got a little nipple with an O-ring that slides into a hole in the block or whatever, or the turbo, and all them O-rings. This thing's got 900,000 on it, and a lot of that stuff's never been touched. and they were all hard and brittle and leaking. So anyway, he said, well, let me get caught up on some money, just haul some wood here and try to get caught up before we bring it in and get that done. So anyway, he did, and I did the exhaust manifold job, and I put a new AC compressor on it because the shaft and the compressor broke, and I had to flush the whole system, all that good stuff. Anyway, got it all done, and told his son Casey to come get it. Well, Casey made one load with it, and he said, man, I was having those intermittent power problems, and now it's constant. He said, I can't even get 16 pounds manifold pressure. I said, well, that's definitely not right. I said, bring it back. Let's see what's going on. Well, I had all these 5-volt reference short to ground codes in it, and I was thinking, well, I can see what occurrences are and when they happen, and some of those codes occurred right after we put the ECM in. So my mind goes to thinking, well, are we having some kind of programming issue? Because I didn't really check the codes. That's my fault. I should have checked the codes when I could communicate with the old ECM, because now that I know what I know now, I I found the problem. Let's put it that way. I'll elaborate on that a little bit more. But I went through the ringer, man, trying to figure out what was going on. I thought we had a programming issue, which it turned out not to be. So, anyways, on that thing, I went through these codes, and I'll be damned if I could make it show itself. So there's 4 sensors that share that 5-volt reference line out of the driver, that ECM. And so the first thing you do when you have a 5-volt problem like that is the easiest thing to do is start unplugging sensors and see if your 5-volt comes back. As I checked the sensors, and I didn't have 5 volts on any of them. So I unplugged them all, and nothing came back, and I thought, well, obviously I've got a wire somewhere that's shorted to ground. And so their troubleshooting step for the codes was pretty basic, and it didn't really give you anything. And I thought, well, I'll just go off my knowledge of how to test this stuff, and I'll just look in the wiring schematic and the pinouts for the ECM, and I found out where three of the 4 were on the C plug on the ECM. And so I just thought, you know what, I'll just check every 5-volt line coming off of the C plug on the ECM, and then I'll check the one that's up on top too that feeds the fuel pressure sensor. So I checked every single one of those with an ohm meter from the 5-volt reference pins on the harness side, and I just went to continuity to ground, and none of those were shortened to ground. So then I was even checking the signal returns from pin to pin to the 5-volt reference, and I was checking continuity between those to see if I had a short to a signal return wire inside the harness. Never could find it. And I thought, golly, is it a programming issue? And that's just because then you don't see the problem, then you start second guessing yourself, because basically what was going on is these wires had rubbed themselves together inside the loom, and you just had to hit it in the right spot to make it happen. So anyways, I couldn't find it where the problem was. It wouldn't show itself. You could plug everything back in, you could get your 5 volts back, plug everything back in, you'd go drive at 100 feet and hit a bump, and the son of a bitch would do it again. So anyways, I was getting real frustrated. I'd spent hours and hours trying to track this problem down. And anyway, I had deduced that there was a programming issue, and the gal down south that did the programming said, oh, I think you got a bad ECM. And anyways, I really screwed up on this one. I ordered another ECM and had them warranty that one. And sorry, I got dogs running around in here shaking their jingles on their collar. But anyways, got the new ECM, programmed another one, and it was doing. When we programmed the second one and it was doing the same thing, I knew I screwed up. I said, there is a frickin' wire somewhere. And I even double checked it. I took the ECM down to that EPA 17 truck, and I knew it was going to throw a bin mismatch and stuff like that, but I knew that the plugs were the same and a lot of the sensors were the same. And I took that ECM down there and I plugged it into Wyatt's truck, and all those 5-volt codes cleared. And I knew without any doubt, okay, it's a stupid wire somewhere. So I went back and I spent hours, and I finally had my wife. Uh, I had 5 volts on like the turbine upstream pressure sensor with my power probe, and I told her, I said, hold the power probe in here. I'm going to start wiggling this wire and plugging in sensors in, and then you tell me when it goes to ground or I lose 5 volts. Well, I just was plugging sensors in. I went over to the, what is it called? The back pressure valve. After back pressure valve pressure sensor was one of them. And I didn't even plug it in, and I grabbed the harness to plug it in and move it a little bit, and it turned green on my power probe. And she goes, it turned green. And I said, what? I didn't even plug it in yet. And so I went and cycled the key, because on those Paccars, when you lose the 5 volts like that, you have to go shut the key off, because once you lose that 5 volts, the ECM disables all the 5-volt lines. It disables all of them to protect the ECM, I guess. Anyway, so I cycled the key, turned it back on, grabbed the harness, did it again. Anyway, I stripped off all the protective insulation on the 3-wire loom going to that thing that went right above the EGR cooler, and sure as hell, there was like 6 or 7 spots in that wires that were all copper bare wire, and they were all just touching each other. And so I just didn't have them in the right spot to get a reading with an ohm meter to check them. I know, you got to get an oscilloscope, but I found it, and so I stripped all that insulation off, and I just soldered 3 new wires in there and ran them to the sensor. And finally, I went and test drove it, and everything was good. And then I test, yeah. Things were going so good that I forgot to latch this battery box cover down, and I'm test driving it, and I'm going up the highway, and I just happened to look in the driver's side mirror, and I look over there, and watch the battery box cover fly off, and I ran over it with the front drive axle. And it was a plastic battery box cover, so I called Kevin and said, well, I got it running right, but I owe you a battery box cover because I ran it over. So it was one of those deals, where it just seemed like he couldn't win for losing. And sorry, Duke's laying beside me snoring. Duke, I'm trying to do a voiceover here, bud. Anyway, so finally got that done, but I'll tell you what, some of these wiring issues like this can just be so aggravating, especially when they're intermittent like that, and they won't stay shorted to ground. And here's another thing that was really odd. The original ECM, I didn't tell you about this. When I was having all the short to ground codes, I could take the old ECM, because when it was cooled down and wasn't hot, it would actually communicate, and it would start the truck, and everything would be fine. I could stick the old ECM in there and turn the key on, and all those short to ground codes went to short to positive on those 2 sensors. And my experience has been with, usually when you'll have like 4 sensors running off a 5-volt reference, most of the time, I know on a Cummins, and most of the time it will, you can take a 5-volt reference line that's shared between 4 sensors, and you can short that 5-volt reference to ground, and it'll throw a code for all those sensors that are shorted, because they're all sharing the 5-volt reference. Well, this stupid Paccar was only throwing a code for 2 of the 4 sensors. So that was another thing that was really throwing me off, that I was confused about. So, I don't know, guys. Sometimes you just wonder, man, am I gaining on any of this or what? But we persevered, and we got it fixed. and got him running right and got him back in the woods where he can make some money again. So anyways, that's the story behind that fiasco. Tension on there with a bar. Just kind of right over here, just a touch. Not working on this one. Okay. My T-bar puller, I was trying to avoid that, but pretty close already, but go back around. Maybe a little bigger, huh? In there. Will that fit in there? Yeah, that's pretty snug and tight. Pretty well centers it where it needs to be. Don't really lock it in though. Yeah, that's better. As you can feel it, it's tight and fairly snug in the groove there, so let's back it up. Alright, should pretty well be dead on. Remember, there's no key on these shafts on these pumps. Remember that. Remember. I think what I'm going to do is snug these up. That'll push it into the taper a little more. Now we'll have to put the stepper motor back in it temporarily to start it. Well, we'll have oil going everywhere. Yeah, folks, the playing field is fixing to be leveled in this country. It's gonna be chaotic here pretty soon. I don't expect the place to last to even, it might make it to the election, but I don't think the country will even make it to 2025. I don't foresee that happening. It's not good. It's amazing to me how many of these big time guys, like these big ranches and farmers, have no clue when I start talking to them about world's reserve currency, about how inflation, I mean, but these guys got all this money. It's because they're wrapped up in this fake fucked up system. They're part of it, you know? Whether you like it or not, 1913 was the beginning of the end for this country, when they passed the Federal Reserve Act and let somebody else start handling our money. Okay. She should stay in place where she's supposed to be. You stay there, you bastard. Okay. We gotta torque that down, that nut. We gotta put the injection lights back on it. Yeah, it's just, I keep thinking, oh, you gotta buy gold, you gotta buy silver. I'm thinking, what the fuck are you gonna do with that? Especially when nobody else has anything to trade with you and the entire system has collapsed. Nobody's gonna want your gold or silver, they're gonna want to eat. You can have all the gold piled up you want, but what the hell are you gonna do with it? When it's not something that somebody needs, it's useless. It's just it's a rock. Food, bullets, supplies. That's what's gonna be important here, guys. That's for us poor people. Now these rich people can go out and buy gold, silver, all they want. Maybe that'll benefit them. I don't know how it would, but see, the BRICS nations they're all getting their own monetary system set up backed by gold and silver. This is what it should be, a solid asset instead of just printing money out of thin air. Such a fake Babylonian money system. Yep. It's toilet paper. Toilet paper is what it is. Basically, what they've turned the dollar into is just toilet paper. Trying to explain to people the purchasing power of your money, and these are educated people too. These people went to college, and that don't mean shit to me. I'm educated, yeah. I see what they're turning loose out of these places, and I'm going, yeah, you're educated, huh? Yeah. You don't know how to tie your own shoe, you stupid son of a bitch. But you're educated, Yeah, okay. I don't know if we're gonna have to. I think we got it started. There's a D10 sitting over there ripping right now, so that's the noise you're hearing. I'll tighten these up and I'll leave the ones on top loose. Bleed them up through the top. And it's just everywhere. They're going after everything. Over here in the Northwest, they're making up bullshit, phony laws and taking all your groundwater now and taxing you on it. If you guys read right on the UN's website, it's right on their website. And look up Agenda 2030. Look it up. This is supposed to be a no-people zone, according to the UN. And did you know that Bill Clinton gave our national parks away to the UN back when he was president? Did you know that? This country has been sold lock, stock, and barrel. You don't have a country, people. You haven't had a country for years. These people that think they're going to vote their way out of this problem is hysterical to me. It doesn't matter who you vote for, it's all a waste of time. Absolute waste of time. Political theater, that's all it is. Am I hitting right there? Yep. Need to get a little bit more on that one. Cannot find my line wrench. Well, hey guy, how are you? How you doing, huh? Well, let's crank on her a little bit and see if we get fuel squirting. Oh shit, we gotta put this in. Forgot about that. Hang on. Can't really tell what the hell. I can see this back one. Got fuel squirting from them. I got fuel squirting from them. Shut her run. Come on. Damn it. Having trouble. getting on it. Two more. When there's no fun to do. Oh shit. Hang on, guys. Let's see if it'll run. Code. I didn't have any throttle before. It just sat there and idle is all it would do. I knew that's what was wrong with it. Pretty much the only thing electronic on the whole engine. Hopefully it communicates. It should, blinking green. Okay, that's not, that was flashing back and forth from red to amber. Know what code that is. That's a 1076 FMI0. Let's clear it. Okay. See how she starts right back up. Okay, well, all right, guys. Let's go work on some other shit now.